in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode 853 now of The Ron and Don Show, and we are live in the Les Schwab studio.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on The Ron and Don Show, let's talk about this. Seattle restaurants, they're saying, hey, Canada, we still love you. We know you hate us, so we're willing to make a deal. We're going to talk about Seattle deals. Also, a lot of people are upset about evidently the president wearing colorful clothing to a funeral of the Pope. And last time I checked, all the popes that were there, they were all wearing pretty colorful clothing. So I'm someone that likes to wear colorful clothing to a funeral. In fact, I wore very colorful clothing to my sister's funeral. So we'll talk about that. First off, though, let's get to this. I think this is really important for people to know that, Ron, you and I have both been working on our fart walks, right?
Boy, this is an interesting story. So there is this new trend. I think a lot of these things happen just when someone comes up with a clever name for it. But
the fart walk.
There's a new thing that's trending online called the fart walk. And it's basically, here's the logic behind it. When you eat in a lot of cultures, especially after a big meal or after dinner, you within the 10, 20 minutes after you finish the meal, you take a walk.
Yeah.
And they say on that walk, many times you can experience some gas from what you just ate. And also that your digestion can be improved. And so this is a trend that's now reached American social media. So they are hashtagging it and do all this stuff. So this author went out and they contacted, people in the fitness industry and gastroenterologists and stuff. And they said there's some truth to it. So when you, if you move and if you walk vigorously, within an hour of eating a big meal, they say it does help digestion. And even though your gut can move the food through your body, when you are moving and your gut is moving, that it does help and it increases the speed at which this goes through. It increases digestion and it does increase some of the farts when you're walking on the fart walk. So I found it interesting. As a side note with you on this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
How many things do you really try to incorporate into your life? Because these type of stories, like the fart walk or drinking a glass of water right when you wake up, or spending 8 minutes doing this, or stretching and yoga, and like if you did everything that we get a tip on, you would not have time to go to work.
Yeah.
You would not have time to take your kid to school. Your morning routine would last until 3 p.m. and then your nighttime routine would have to start. Yeah. So like in terms of taking the new piece of information, what's the threshold for you to even try it?
I think just trying stuff that's new, that invigorates your life a little bit, just to kind of switch it up. Because I think for a lot of us, what happened to a lot of people during COVID? Structure was taken away from you, right? Because a lot of times your job, when you have a W-2 job, your W-2 job tells you this is when you show up, this is when you have lunch, this is when you can leave, this is when you can go on vacation.
Smoke break.
Yeah, and all of a sudden when that was gone, there are people that thrived in that. Like I loved it, right? Because just for my mentality of an entrepreneur is just give me time. I don't need a check every 2 weeks. I'll get my own check. I'll figure it out, right? So that's the spirit of the entrepreneur. So for me, COVID, I built a house during COVID. I grew closer to my son during COVID. I went on some amazing trips with him in an old Westphalia van during COVID. So we even though it was tough for all of us, we were able to say to ourselves, hey, let's switch our lives up here a little bit and take some of this time that we have and go on a lot of the working world in a different way.
You've done a lot of things though, and not all of them have stuck.
Do something. You don't have to do everything, just do something. So if you don't have a morning routine right now, it doesn't mean that you should launch into a 2-hour morning routine tomorrow, right?
You don't have a fart walk.
Well,
Maybe you need.
No, and I think for a lot of people, just getting up and saying, hey, I'm going to get up, even if you just did this and said, I'm going to get up at the same time every day. And when I get up, maybe I'll have that glass of water, some lemon, because that's good for you. Maybe I'll do 10 push-ups. And when I'm taking my shower, maybe I'll get in there and do 20 air squats. And that's going to be my routine for this week. And then if you decide that you want to add on to it, great. I do think a nice fart walk after you've had some gassy Mexican food and I've been hanging out with my boy and the dog, I don't think it's a bad idea. And they do say not only does it help with digestion, it helps you lose weight, and it really helps your heart. It really, really helps your heart. And think about that. I think a lot of us do. Our biggest meal of the day probably should be earlier in the day. For me, sometimes it's pretty late because my son gets home late from sports. So what I'm trying to do now is eat before he comes home. I save a little bit of food. He comes home, he eats a massive plate. Then we grab Charlie the dog, and then we go for a fart walk. Hey, you guys, don't forget, we sell the sound. RonandDonSitDown.com. More in a minute. Hey, Ron and Don Nation, listen up. Right now at Les Schwab Tires, you can save big on some of their best tires at the Best for Less sales event. In fact, save up to $120 instantly on a wide selection of some of their longest lasting, best performing tires. Plus, every tire, Ron, it's covered by America's Best Tire Warranty, right?
Yes, 60-day satisfaction guarantee, no hassled road hazard protection, and free maintenance for the life of your tires. I just did this. I picked up a screw, went over to Ballard, bam, they fixed it for free. It's their best deal on their best tires with the best service in the business. Just another way you get more from less. Stop by your neighborhood Les Schwab or learn more at leschwab.com. That's leschwab.com. This is a limited time offer while supplies last. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. He's Ron, I'm Don. Don't forget, if you need us, we're sitting down with a lot of people right now.
We are. You can reach out to me directly, ron@ronanddon.com. What we like to do is meet with you on your real estate journey, where you're at, and then give you a bespoke game plan. So, for instance, you might have had a family member die, and it's like, boom, I got to sell a house or 2 houses or 3 houses. That's a lot to try and carry when you don't know what you're doing, and you're also grieving. Maybe you're getting a divorce. Maybe you're having a kid, and you guys are needing a bigger house. So wherever you're at, we have another client that's blending a family together into like a mixed family situation, and that's really exciting. And so they need to sell this house to buy a new property. So wherever your real estate journey begins, that's where we want to meet you, and it starts with the sit down. Just go to ronanddonsitdown.com or email me directly.
Yeah, it's a virtual meeting, and then we come out and see you. So like my good friend Tim up in Edmonds today, we went up to see him today after virtually sitting down with him. Next Tuesday, we're doing some sit downs. I'm doing a sit down in the morning on well, we're doing a house visit. We already did the sit-down. We're going to head out there on Friday. Also, don't forget, we'll talk more on the Friday show about real estate only. I think people are wondering, is real estate selling in the spring with everything that's happening on Wall Street? And Ron, all signs show Seattle just kind of the real estate market here just keeps kind of ripping away.
It is still going for sure.
Yeah. All right. Hey, you guys, I thought this was kind of interesting. We find in our real estate business that we're in and out of a lot of homes where people have passed. In fact, I was in a home this week where mom had passed and dad had both passed in this house at different times. And it's interesting, that generation, they call them the silent generation. Their kids were the boomers, and then their parents were the greatest generation. And think about that. If you were a kid being raised by the greatest generation, you were a child when you went through the Great Depression, when you saw your parents start to hang on to everything and not let it go, because everything has a purpose, right? And you couldn't go out on Facebook Marketplace and start giving stuff away or trading stuff on eBay, because of course those things, it would be years until they showed up in our own lives. So thinking a little bit, I see sometimes when somebody passes away, and people haven't processed it. And I grew up in the Catholic Church, and we just saw this with the Pope. There's a lot of pressure in some religions, like, hey, and this happens with some of my friends that are Islamic, some people that are Jewish. We can't wait. We have to have the funeral, the celebration of life, whatever you want to call it. We have to have that now. And I think in growing up, and I was an altar boy, so I went to a lot of funerals, you guys. And it seemed like when people died and they weren't older, especially if it was something tragic, it was a child, it was a baby, whatever it is, everybody shows up in black, and it is just tragic. It is just tragic and tragedy because nobody has had any time to process it. It's kind of interesting because we were talking about COVID earlier on. During COVID, where my aunt passed away, and then also my uncle had passed away, about a year and a half went by, and then their kids, my cousins decided, hey, you know what? Let's get together. Let's have a celebration of life. Maybe we won't do this formally in a church. And by the time you get to that part of it, people have grieved. People have made sense of whatever's happened. People have a tendency to want to share stories and want to remember. And it's not so freaking sad, right? So I was thinking about the Pope's funeral. And everybody is upset with the current president because he wore a blue suit and I guess he wore the wrong color tie for some reason. And I know during my sister's funeral, man, we played some John Denver. I had a yellow tie on. When I was a little kid, she had paint. She told me I used to try to dye my hair blonde, and she's like, I can do that for you. And so she ended up dyeing it really, really white one time. So I decided at her funeral, I'm just going to dye my hair white in honor of her. And I got up in front of the church. We had a sing along. We said some fun things about her. But I don't think a funeral, when people come into the world, we celebrate. And I think if somebody is, and again, there are tragedies where it's hard to celebrate, you guys. There's no doubt, especially when it involves kids or some kind of violence. But if somebody has lived a long, great life, for instance, like the Pope has, and the Pope has passed away, wear whatever the hell you want to. And again, people were so upset with him. But when you look at all the cardinals that were there, they were all wearing red. I don't think you're supposed to wear red to a funeral, are you? What say you about everybody being upset with the president and then some of the other dignitaries that were there, including William, Prince William? He was there, and evidently he had a blue suit on too. So
I think it's different for the head of state than a normal everyday funeral of a private citizen. This is a head of state. There are protocols in existence because you're bringing together people from all around the world. And so those protocols are there for a reason. And I remember I've listened to a lot of people talk about, oh my God, the first time I met, Queen Elizabeth. I heard Michelle Obama talk about this recently. And Michelle Obama was the first lady at the time. And she still got, here's what you do. Here's where you stand. Here's what you can wear. Here's how you greet the Queen. And she said once she went through all the protocols, the Queen was very gracious and took her in, and they had a more informal setting in a talk, and she said it was very interesting and she enjoyed it. But the protocols are there. So the Pope is a head of state in addition to the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church. Vatican is a country. And so when you're invited there, you do receive some protocols because they want you to know if you're flying in from Saudi Arabia or from Africa, like there are different cultures flying in from all around the world. And so here are the protocols if you are attending this funeral. I think the thing that it does is it says, we don't want another person making the Pope's funeral about themselves. And so that's when you stick out and you stand out and everybody's wearing black. Or very, very, navy midnight blue. And you have a black tie on, and that's what was given to all the attendees. And you have one person that didn't do that. The focus goes on that, and it makes this about them. The cardinals, in wearing their traditional garb, they've been doing that for 2,000 years. So the cardinal robes and the colors of those cardinal robes, that's part of the religious tradition. And so, again, that's included. If you're a cardinal, you know what to wear. If a cardinal wore a black suit and he's among the 180 other cardinals, that cardinal would be called out and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why did the Archdiocese of the Cardinal of the United States wear a black suit when all the other cardinals were wearing the regular robe with the red sash or whatever? I don't know what that's called. So I think that it was seen as disrespectful and drawing attention to yourself instead of paying homage to the Pope. But in a private funeral, if it's a couple hundred people and you're not a head of state, and the personality, like you and I went to a funeral together for a coworker, Brad, and his hockey buddies all wore their hockey jerseys. And it was charming, and it was great, and it was fun because that was their connection with him. And the guys that he rode bicycles with wore their bicycle jerseys. And so that's a different story and a different vibe. And the family knew those arrangements and communicated that. With the head of state and the Pope, I think you have to give respect to the protocols.
Yeah. And then the people that Brad was in the nude colony with, they showed up, which was a little uncomfortable. Brad would think that's funny. Wait a minute. Hey, it's Ron and Don here for Ron and Don Real Estate. Have you heard of those guys? Hey, if you're thinking about buying a home, selling a home, or invest in a home, and you're wondering where to start, the best place to start is by educating yourself. And Ron, we've worked really hard, and you've worked really hard on something we call a buyer playbook and a seller playbook, right?
Yeah, it's free. Just contact me, Ron at ronanddon.com, or you can go to the website. It will give you a primer to just set your mind of like, what is the process? Where am I at in the process? How do we proceed? And then we follow it up with a Ron and Don sit down where we really create a custom plan for you. Every transaction is different. Every transaction is bespoke. Everybody has different set of needs, wants, and desires. And that's what the sit down is all about, to get you where you want to go in your real estate journey.
Yeah. All you got to do is go to ronanddonsitdown.com. That's ronanddonsitdown.com. And don't forget, let's say it together. We sell the sound. All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. Don't forget, if you need us, ronanddon.com. And we'll do a virtual meetup, like 45 minutes, and then we'll come out and see you. And we might even bring you a Ron and Don coffee mug. So why wouldn't we do that? Also, don't forget, we sell the sound. We've been selling this year on the Olympic Peninsula. On the east side, we just sold in Sammamish. We just sold in Briar, an amazing home in Briar, you guys. We are working on homes right now from Lake Forest Park up to Edmonds, all the way down to the south end. So we really appreciate everyone that calls us. And most of the time, we become part of your real estate journey. And I also like when people choose us because they say, hey, we just think it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Let's see. All right. So we went over the fart walk, and then we went over the Pope's funeral, which, by the way, I probably did make my sister's funeral about me. Do you know me?
I do know you.
Yeah, of course I made it about me. Final segment here, though. I have to say, on a serious note, Ron and I went to the beaches of Normandy a number of years ago, and we hired a guy by the name of Dale, and Dale was a British paratrooper. Can you tell everyone real quick about the way he made the war and what happened on D-Day come alive for all of us? Because we stood on the very beach, and I want to talk about the Canadians here in a moment. But to stand there and to know that there were thousands of ships out there, right? And there were young boys that had never even left the state. And now here they are on a foreign shore, taking on the Nazis and Hitler, knowing that some of your friends are in another theater fighting the Japanese. This was really incredible when we stood there and we went, wow, this is where Great Britain came ashore on these two beaches. These are the two beaches where the Americans came to shore. And then this one beach right here, this is where the Canadian Commonwealth came to shore.
Yeah, it was one of the best travel experiences I've ever had in my life. And it was a private tour. It was quite expensive, so I don't say everyone were very privileged that we could afford to do this. We hired a private guide. He picked us up in a van, and he took us to all the spots, and he would bring out big aids, if you will, photographs and poster boards that had all kinds of stuff on it that you could see photos from the day.
Yep.
But the couple of the most memorable ones is my brother could not stop talking about eclairs. We had this just chocolate eclairs. Like, we're going to go get more eclairs after this. But we went to there's still a German Widerstand nest is what it's called. It's these little pillboxes that they built that have very specific intervals all along the French coast. And it went as many as they could do on the coast, they would build them. And they all had the same architecture. And we went into one of them still exists. And we had permission because he's a licensed tour guide there to go inside, and he pulls out this big chart. He's like, okay, here's the guns that the Germans were using.
It was a big figure. It was a big figure eight that they had basically dug in.
It was a solid, like 10-foot, 8-foot solid cement walls, and you had these little cutouts where you could see out to the water. And so he handed us, we looked at this weapon. He goes, here's the weapon you'd be using. This is how quickly you could fire it before it overheats. Here's how many rounds you could do. And here was the range. And so he says, I would be standing here, Don would be standing there. We'd have a rangefinder over here. And he went through and he said each Higgins boat that the U.S. were bringing in held 21 Marines. Between the two guns, we could fire 70 shots before it overheated.
That's right.
Whatever it was. I don't remember the exact number. And he says, and it would, we could do that within 45 seconds. So he's like, okay, we're going to time this now. And he goes, a Higgins boat, the door opens up, U.S. Marines start to exit, and he would then go through the firing count. And he goes, there's 21 Americans on that boat. Fire, fire, fire. And he would do the entire thing. And he did each shot until all of those Marines would be dead.
Yeah.
And it was so profound when you sat there and you tried to put yourself in the mind of the German soldiers who were in their early 20s.
Well,
sometimes late teens.
A lot of them were kids and a lot of them were old men.
Right. And so you put yourself in that mind.
Hitler was out of men, kind of like what we're seeing in Russia.
And go, this is what they were ordered to do. And their country had enlisted them by force or by threat to do this job. And you had someone there that if you didn't do your job, they might shoot you.
Yeah.
And then you put yourself in the mind of the people coming ashore. And it was profoundly moving to do that, because by the end of the day, we ended up at the memorial cemetery there for the Americans. There's also a memorial cemetery for the Germans that was right down the road. We did not go to that one, but you can visit that one. And so you saw the names, ranks, serial number, and ages of all these Americans that came aboard. But the great thing about this guide, because he was British, is he told us, like you said, the breakout, okay, it just wasn't the Americans. There were other countries involved. And if you grow up in America, you only hear the American side. And so he also told us that Canada at the time, I think, was under 1 million people.
No. Canada, there's 14 million people in Canada at the time. 14 million people. 500,000, mostly men, were fighting for the British Commonwealth. In fact, they were wearing the exact same uniform. And so on D-Day, Great Britain had 2 beaches, the Americans had 2 beaches, and then the Canadians had a beach all to themselves. What's really amazing about what Canada did, is first and foremost, when Great Britain was over there and they're like, there's no way. Because we were doing kind of what we're doing with Israel right now in Ukraine. We were sending beans and bullets, but we're not sending bodies because of what happened in World War I. We don't want a part of that. Pearl Harbor happens and boom, all the Americans are ready to double down and let's go. We didn't want to fight a war. Now we're going to fight 2 wars in 2 theaters. In fact, we're going to go ahead and jump in and fight this world war. The Canadians, what they did and the sacrifices they made, not only on D-Day, but throughout World War II, and the way they partnered with us in Great Britain, when you only have 14 million people that live in your country and 500,000 of them are over fighting. On the other hand, America, we're 340 million now. Then we were 160 million. We still had 12 million men and women that were fighting these wars in 2 different theaters. The point being, we've always been side by side with the Canadians. When I go up to Canada, and you head up to Whistler, one of the greatest things that you can do up there is go have a little Bats Blue, right? And the Canadians are so nice and they're so kind, but now they're so pissed at us. And as a result of that, I understand, Ron, that Seattle restaurants want to make it better for our relationship with the Canadians. I will say this, like my Airbnb business, suffering suffering right now, especially this summer. I'd usually be fully booked. I'm not. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Canadians are not coming here. And also a lot of people from different parts of the world, including China. A lot of times we have a lot of people that will come and stay in our Airbnbs from China. That's not happening. So some of these homes right now, I'm getting a little worried about as we head into May. And usually my June is booked. It's not booked.
It's interesting because Canada just elected a new prime minister. That prime minister, the day before the inauguration of our president, was something like 30 points behind the Conservative Party. Like, it was a gigantic gap.
Yeah.
And then he rallied and they won. And he ran on an anti-America or anti-president campaign. And basically the Canadians rally behind that. And it's the worst sentiment between Canada and America probably ever is right now when you look at the polling data and that stuff. And so as a salvo, and this was primarily headed up by Ivar's restaurant chain, they have taken out some advertisements and they said, listen, we're sorry for how our country's treating you. We still want you to come visit.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. We know that there's a difference between the Canadian loonie and the US dollar. If you come down and show us you're a Canadian citizen, all of our prices are going to be in Canadian. So we're taking 30% off immediately.
That's awesome.
We will accept your loonie as currency. You don't have to cash it into dollars, and you will pay Canadian prices for our American product. And on top of that, we apologize to how you've been treated. We want you to come here. So Ivers has done that. Some other people on the waterfront have sort of jumped in because, for instance, like when the Toronto Blue Jays would come and do a homestand against the Seattle Mariners, there would be thousands of Blue Jay fans.
A lot more than Mariner fans.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I've been to games there where you look around and you're like, I'm the only Mariner fan in my section.
And it's packed and every seat is full. Yeah.
And there is a concerted effort in Canada to boycott travel like that.
Yep.
Like there are movements that say, do not support America, stay home. And so Ivers is kind of going, man, on those weekends would be very profitable for us because people would come down to the waterfront, they would eat at Ivers, they would go over and see a ball game and do it before and or after the game, come in and they would drink at our bars, they would have some beers.
Ride the wheel,
all that.
Go on a boat ride.
And then they have to stay somewhere, the lodging and the Airbnbs and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And so Seattle, they're not making a huge deal of it, and they never mention Trump or tariffs specifically, but the undercurrent is, we're sorry, not all of us feel the same way about you, and we would love you to come down, harass the Mariner fans during a game, in good fun.
No, even in bad.
And then have some chowder. And I think it's a cool gesture.
So you're saying maybe if I open an Ivers at my Airbnbs, maybe we get some business going.
Or give them 30% off.
I do have to say, we sell the sound, but it also means that we sail the sound. And Ron and I, for whatever reason, have been on the Olympic Peninsula a lot, and we're also working on a home up north here. So I love getting on the ferry. The thing I love about the ferry is that they now have Ivers on the ferry. Do you go with the chili or do you go with the clam chowder?
I'm going to do it. I do clam chowder.
You do the clam chowder. So do you get the little crackers?
Of course. Why would you not do the crackers?
So I always go on there. I get the chili. I love the chili, especially on a chilly day.
I'll tell you what.
And then
there is no worse breath than coffee and chowder.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I even sensed it in myself. I was like, I enjoyed that meal, but wow.
Yeah.
That is some breath.
And I do have to say, people are pretty excited right now. I think, is it Steak Shack?
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack.
Yeah.
Is that on Alaska where we're seeing Shake Shack?
There's a couple Shake Shack. There's one at U Village up there.
They're like, hey, if you sit up in first class and you ride with us on our planes, we're going to give you some Shake Shack.
Shake Shack's good stuff.
Then you're going to have to go for a fart walk. And how are you going to do that when you're a dizzy kayaker? See what I did?
Yeah.
When you stepped on it, you should just let it sit there.
No, you don't want the fart walk to sit there. You want it to walk.
And the comeback. Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ron and Don Show. We really appreciate it. And don't forget, if you need us, what do we do, Ron? We sell the sound, right?
We sell the sound. You can reach out, Ron at ronanddon.com, or the website is ronanddon.com.
Yeah. Also, don't forget we have a buyer's playbook, a seller's playbook, and a coloring book. We can send you the buyer's, players, or the coloring book.
Yeah, we'll make a coloring book.
Hey, don't forget also Les Schwab. For the month of May, stop by Les Schwab Tire Center. There's 83 locations to serve you. And Ron, they're doing something in the spring we used to do in the fall. We're doing a food drive, right?
Yeah, food drive right now. Just you can go by the store and do bring by your canned non-perishable food items, or you can do a virtual bag at a local QFC. So that might be the easiest for some folks. And then QFC is actually going to match some of those donations.
Cairo Cares is a part of this. Go to their website, Cairo Cares, and you can donate cash. Last year we raised $35,000. That's awesome, you guys. And this year I think we can raise more. But again, you can stop by one of the stores. Sometimes I think doing that with your kids, like stopping by Trader Joe's, buying some, dropping it off. Kids can see that the world is bigger than them, and then they'll start asking questions about where does this food go. I think that's really important when it comes to food security, insecurity. And sometimes when people are talking about the price of eggs, what we're really talking about is the price to feed a family. It's so expensive for me just to feed the two of us and our dog.
It's expensive for me to feed myself.
I can't imagine my mom, a single mom, feeding 4 kids right now, but she used to do it back in the day, and we love her for it. So anyway, don't forget, he's Ron, I'm Don. If you need us, just reach out. Ron and Don, sit.com. We'll see you next time. And you've been listening to the Ron and Don Show only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Ron and Don Show. Now keep your head up and your shoulders back and find some black belt courage.